Signage and Wayfinding Design, a complete guide to creating environmental graphic design systems by Calori and David Vanden-Eynden. Introduction. Conversation with a New York City cabbie. Cabbie, what do you do? Reply, I'm a designer. Cabbie, oh yeah, designer, so you're in fashion design, right? Reply, no, I design signs. Cabbie, what do you mean you design signs? Reply, I design signs. I mean, when you drive fares to La Gruta, how do you know where to drop them off? Cabbie, I follow the signs. Wait, you mean someone designs those things? Never would have figured that someone designed signs. Reply, well, God didn't put them here. Cabbie, people really do that, huh? I mean, design signs? Reply, yep. It's been 8 years since this book was first published. A lot has changed and a lot has stayed the same, including the relevance of the fictional dialogue above. Environmental graphic design, or EGD, a relatively new hybrid of the design field, is fairly long on practice but short on theory and formalized methodology. The first edition of this book filled that knowledge gap by putting forth the first formal methodology for solving signage and wayfinding problems, the signage pyramid model. This second edition, the first we know of for any book on signage and EGD, builds on the signage pyramid method with updated content and full color throughout. David Vanden-Eynden, my partner in design, business, and life, is co-authoring this second edition. His insight and hard work has made this edition even better than the first. This second edition acknowledges some of the changes that have impacted EGD since the first edition. For openers, our professional organization, the SEGD, has changed the root word for the E in SEGD from environmental to experiential, but this book's primary focus is still on environmental graphic design, as in graphics in the built environment. This edition continues to discuss the design process in detail because this process is so important to the works of all designers. In the meantime, the business community has taken an interest in the design process. So while the design process remains the same, you may better recognize it repackaged as design thinking and repurposed for corporate problem solving. Branding is now a core element of identity strategies, and EGD plays an ever-increasing role in creating brand identities, be it for large corporations, small businesses, nonprofit institutions, events, community initiatives, and the like. Many people now possess smartphones, which give them personalized access to tailored information, including some wayfinding information. And digital signage is a hot term, but mainly means deployed, non-mobile screens that deliver advertising/marketing information. When you enter a store, at the checkout lane, at the transit stop, on a city street, and so forth. The Americans with Disabilities Act's, ADA's, 2010 Standards for Accessible Design, SAD, are significantly different regarding signage than the original 1991 Americans with Disabilities Act Accessibility Guidelines, ADAAG. SAD or not, the basic principles of typography, a key element of signage, remain true after nearly 6 centuries of practical application and refinement. The physical world still exists, and we still live in it, and we still need to find our way through it. There are now multiple channels for communicating wayfinding information, digital and static, but the basic need for orientation still exists. After all, if the power goes out, that little blue dot on your smartphone map doesn't exist, but physical signs do, and you suddenly realize how essential they are to conducting your life. This edition, which acknowledges all of the above, still focuses on the very complex task of designing static signage and wayfinding systems that help people navigate their physical surroundings. This edition is for all those who work to make life better by designing signage and wayfinding programs that help fellow humans find their way through the real world. Signage is visual communication design at its most elemental level, helping people read the world. You are what you see, and yes, people design signs. Chapter 1: What is environmental graphic design? Our need to hear and be heard, see and be seen, touched and be touched, that is, to communicate with our fellow humans, is fundamental to our well-being and indeed our survival. Long before paper was invented, humans made marks on objects, such as cave walls, in their surrounding environment. The intent of making these marks or signs was to communicate information visually. This communication imbued these marks with meaning, and they became a shared language among the people who made and understood them. See figures 1.1 and 1.2. As such, environmental graphic design, or EGD, which can be defined as the graphic communication of information in the built environment, is one of the world's oldest professions. And you thought something else was. These architectural graphic designers realized that there were significant differences between their design and print design. Digital design didn't exist then. Most notably, that architectural graphics encompassed the planning and communication of information on three-dimensional, 3D, objects in the built environment, which is far more complex than designing a two-dimensional printed piece, such as a poster, book, or brochure. As these architectural graphics designers discovered each other and the commonalities of their professional interests, they joined together to form the Society of Environmental Graphic Designers, SEGD. These words relating to SEGD were slightly changed several years ago to the Society for Environmental Graphic Design to focus on the field rather than its practitioners, and changed again in 2014 to the Society for Experiential Graphic Design. With the birth of the SEGD, the term environmental graphics replaced architectural graphics for two reasons. First, architectural was viewed as too limiting, in that this form of graphic design is often geared towards non-architectural open spaces, such as roadways, cities, theme parks, and so on. That is, the larger sphere of the built environment. Second, the term architectural graphics could be confused with the drawings architects create to document their building designs. As noted above, in 2014, the SEGD changed the referential word for the E in SEGD to experiential to broaden the SEGD member base. This has created some confusion and consternation as to what EGD actively is, participating in the context of this book. As with the first edition, EGD is considered to focus on environmental graphic design, that is, the design of graphics in the built environment. Regardless of whether the E refers to environmental or experiential, the SEGD has grown to become the premier professional organization for all designers who practice EGD, and signage is now in the dictionary. The spectrum of EGD activity. We've established that contemporary EGD actively involves the development of a systematic, informationally cohesive, and visually unified graphic communication system for a given site within the built environment. Such sites can range from a single building to a complex of buildings to a city or a transportation network connecting multiple sites on a regional or national scope, all of which have complex communication needs. EGD can respond to those environmental communication needs in three distinct but often overlapping arenas. As shown in Figure 1.5, these have been identified by one of our colleagues, Wyan Hunt, as signage and wayfinding, which orients people to a site and helps them navigate it. Interpretation, which tells a story about a site. Placemaking, which creates a distinctive image for a site. Although this book focuses on physical signage and wayfinding design, and in particular static, non-electronic signage, the above three communication facets of EGD and their interaction apply to both the physical and digital realms, and warrants a bit more exploration. Signage and wayfinding. Signage and wayfinding are most commonly expressed in unified sign programs that informationally and visually knit together a site, a collection of related sites, such as regional parks or global corporate facilities, or networks, such as a transportation system. Examples of signage and wayfinding programs are shown in the gallery section at the end of this book, as well as throughout this chapter and others in the book, in the sense that well-designed sign programs serve to visually unify a site. Signage can perform a place-making role by establishing a unique identity and sense of place, thereby creating a brand image in environmental form. See figures 1.6 and 1.7. In addition to wayfinding and placemaking roles, signage programs can also communicate other kinds of information, such as warning, operational, and interpretive information, as examined further in Chapter 4, the Information Content System. Although the terms signage and wayfinding are often used interchangeably, it's very important to keep in mind this distinction in mind. Typically, the primary objective of a signage program is to help people find their way through an environment, whereas effective wayfinding solutions often involve more than signage alone. See Figure 1.8. Clear, well-defined pathways and other visual cues, such as prominent landmarks, all aid wayfinding, as do printed maps, human guides, and more recently, mobile computer devices that utilize GPS and augmented reality technology. A key objective in wayfinding design, which our colleague Per Mollerup terms way showing, is to enable each person to form a mental map of a site or environment. So, the clearer the physical layout of a site, the clearer those mental maps will be. In other words, even the most carefully conceived sign program can't solve all the problems of navigating a site that contains confusing, circuitous pathways. In such cases, the sign program is like using a band-aid to patch together a rather large wound. In some help, but not a panacea. Think about it. How many times have you blamed the signs when you're having difficulty navigating a complicated highway interchange? In many such cases, the signs themselves aren't the problem. They can only do so much to guide you through what is the underlying problem, a poorly laid out interchange. Wayfinding is an active process requiring mental engagement and intention to the environment one is trying to navigate. This is why in a sports car rally, the navigator is just as important as the driver. The fact is, however, that many people are better at understanding information given to them verbally, and so would rather ask someone how to go from point A to point B than to follow the signs or read a map. Signage and other visual wayfinding cues can, however, help even those people navigate their environment when there is no one around to ask. Interpretation. Interpretive information tells a story about the meaning of a concept or theme, e.g., democracy or science, an object, e.g., the Constitution or an aircraft, a site, e.g., an automobile manufacturing plant or a national park, an event, e.g., the Battle of Gettysburg or the Jamestown Flood, a historical figure, e.g., Franklin Delano Roosevelt or Martin Luther King, a corporation and its products, and so on. Interpretive information is most often expressed in the form of exhibitry, which can be composed of a site itself, physical artifacts, audiovisual, AV, and interactive media, static, images and graphics, casework, and more. Interpretive exhibits can be temporary or permanent, or exterior or interior. Exhibits can serve a placemaking role in that they often become destinations unto themselves. Interpretive information intersects with signage, in that interpretive information in the form of text and images can also be displayed in signage programs. See figures 1.9 through 1.12. Placemaking. Placemaking creates a distinctive image for a site and can be expressed in several ways, as already discussed. Signage and interpretive exhibits can create a sense of place, as can gateways, portals, gathering points, and landmarks. What separates placemaking in the EGD sense from other forms of placemaking is the explicit communication of information through both static and digital channels. Without this explicit communication intent, placemaking becomes an exercise of architecture, interior design, sculpture, theater, and so on. This is not to discount that EG designers may team with any of those disciplines in order to create placemaking objects or events, which are often monumental, typically in scale, but sometimes also in quantity, even if sometimes temporary. New York's Grand Central Terminal, or an exquisitely designed restaurant interior, may convey a wonderful sense of place, but they are not placemaking in the EGD sense. Because their inherent purpose is not to communicate information, Times Square, on the other hand, derives its entire sense of place from the sheer concentration of signage, both static and electronic, surrounding it. And because the intent of all that signage is to communicate, even if primarily marketing messages, Times Square does represent placemaking in an EGD sense. See figures 1.13 through 1.15. The importance of EGD today. As explained, the difference between EGD and other types of design is the explicit purpose of EGD to communicate meaningful information via words, symbols, diagrams, and images. Because of this expressed communication function, EGD plays a key and increasingly recognized role in how people use and experience the built environment. Furthermore, the signage and wayfinding aspect of EGD is being recognized as the key contributor to a sense of personal well-being, safety, and security in unfamiliar and often high-stress environments, such as airports, hospitals, and cities. Additionally, EGD has gained importance for its capability to create a sense of place for a given site and for its power to reinforce a brand image. Signage was once considered a necessary evil, or worse, an afterthought, but a growing number of people in the design, construction, development, marketing, and policy arenas have gained an understanding of signage and EGD's role in humanizing and demystifying the complexities of the built environment. They have found that well-designed signage and environmental graphic programs not only fulfill their communication function of informing, directing, and identifying, but also serve to enhance the aesthetic and psychological qualities of an environment. Certainly, EG designers are often part of the consultant team assembled by architects for a building design or renovation project, but EG design has finally come into its own as well. Cities and universities are engaging EG designers, sans architects, to create signage and other EG design programs. Real estate managers are engaging EG designers, sans architects, to revitalize the image of a building or facility. Corporations and institutions, including transportation agencies, are engaging EG designers, sans architects, to unify environmental communication systems on regional, national, and global scales. Even general contractors and construction managers are including signage as a line item in their procurement budgets. All this has happened in part because people have recognized that signage and EG design have a unique branding power. See Figure 1.16. Signage and EGD, the brand connection. The importance of brand strategy and management has risen to top attention within many organizations. Large and small, commercial and institutional, brand strategies recognize that people come into contact with a brand via several types of touchpoints and seek to maximize not only the quantity of these touchpoints, but also the quality. A comprehensive brand strategy embraces signage and EGD programs as important touchpoints that have the power to build brand images in three-dimensional environmental form. This can take place through harmony or imposition strategies. Using the harmony strategy, the visual characteristics of a sign program can reflect and reinforce the visual characteristics of a site's design or architecture to create a seamless, totally integrated identity. See figures 1.17 and 1.18. The harmony approach works well when the signage program is being designed for an environment with a high level of visual unity, be it an existing site or more commonly a new development or major renovation. When design details can be coordinated among all the design professionals involved in the project. Using the imposition approach, signage can create or impose a unique singular identity on a site, an identity that's completely independent of the site's visual characteristics. This approach works well for existing sites that have disparate visual elements, such as cities, college campuses, corporate facilities, and transportation networks that can be linked together by the meta branding of the signage program. See figures 1.19 through 1.21. In an ideal branding situation, signage relates to an organization's or a site's other communication channels, such as its website, mobile device application, and electronic directories in a seamless brand expression. This is often not as easily accomplished since many large organizations have different departments responsible for these various communication channels. For example, a university's marketing department oversees the website, its communications department oversees electronic screens, and the facilities department oversees physical static signage. And seldom are these departments' efforts coordinated, and in the fact that each department may have different procurement procedures, and it can become quite difficult to impose a unified brand persona across all of an organization's communication channels. Whether a signage program brands by harmony or imposition, signage provides needed information to people using it, engendering feelings of goodwill and security, thus enhancing the quality of the brand experience. And since signage programs provide information that people actively seek, signage links this sought after information directly to the brand. There is no doubt that good signage builds good relationships with any given audience, and that signage is a valuable component of a comprehensive brand strategy. Digital Information Systems and EGD. Digital information systems that display graphics on electronic screens have become an important part of everyone's daily life, and since these systems serve a communication function, they have a relationship to EGD. This relationship is somewhat nebulous at this time, but more clarity should evolve as the future progresses. The focus of this book is on static, non-electronic signage programs, but some discussion of the digital realm is in order. We'll start with some basic definitions of types of digital signage currently in use. These definitions build on those offered on the Digital Screen Media Association website. More information on digital display units is presented in Chapter 6, The Hardware System. Digital signage. Digital signage refers to electronic display screens, which are typically large but increasingly include smaller tablet-sized screens, deployed in a permanent fixed position to display information content to a mass audience. Digital signage content is typically pre-programmed and non-interactive, that is, not selected by individual user and is often of an advertising or entertainment nature. In fact, the term digital signage is currently somewhat misleading because most digital signage is used to display advertising content, not wayfinding or other informational content that help people navigate an environment. That said, digital signage is being used for EGD applications such as flight or train schedule information and exhibit information. And more will emerge with time and as the cost of infrastructure and deployment diminishes. See Figure 1.22. Interactive kiosks. Interactive kiosks are a form of digital signage in that they use display screens deployed in a fixed position with pre-programmed content, but they have the distinction of allowing individual users to access information or perform a transaction as selected by each user from the kiosk's pre-programmed information pool. The classic example of an interactive kiosk is an ATM. EGD examples include the New York City MTA's on-the-go interactive wayfinding kiosks, which display customized user-selected travel and local information, and electronic building directories, which a user accesses to find a tenant in an office building. Users interact with these devices via touchscreen or keyboard/pad interfaces. Gesture-based interaction may become more commonplace in the future. See Figure 1.23. Mobile devices. Mobile devices, also known as handheld digital devices or smartphones, are small, self-contained portable computer devices such as phones or tablets, which people carry with them. Mobile devices are completely interactive and personalized by the individual owner of the device. By connecting to the internet via phone data or Wi-Fi service, mobile users have access to the universe of digital information and can select any information they want or need. Most mobile devices are equipped with GPS technology, which locates the phone's geographic position. This in turn has led to many mobile wayfinding applications, including the map applications that are native to most mobile operating systems. Since GPS currently only works outdoors, these wayfinding apps are suitable for navigating exterior environments, but developments in mobile interior wayfinding include one of augmented reality and Wi-Fi triangulation. In addition to the more generalized map apps, there are specific wayfinding apps for specific locations, like the MyNav Central Park app, which provides wayfinding and other information about the park. See Figure 1.24. Also in the EGD realm, specific mobile apps provide enriched interpretive information to museum visitors. As stated previously, the explosion of digital information systems has created some flux in the EGD world. The above basic definitions attempt to impose some order on the flux, but are necessarily brief and general. They don't get into the technical nitty-gritty of the hardware and software infrastructures that deliver content to each of the above digital systems. This infrastructure is complex, expensive, in need of relatively frequent upgrading, and generally beyond the skill set of most EGD practitioners and sign fabricators, and certainly beyond the scope of this book. Even digital content production can elude EG designers if it involves writing code or the production of video or animated content. Yet content is the key to effective, engaging, relevant digital communication. After all, the digital sign, kiosk, or mobile device is just a blank screen waiting to be filled with content, similar to a blank canvas waiting to be filled with paint, and the quality of that content affects the user's perception of the message being conveyed. In this respect, e.g., designers can use their communication skills to shape and direct digital content structure, theme, and visual appearance, often by partnering with technical specialists who can transform the e.g. designer's vision into pixels on a screen. E.g. designers can also use their 3D design skills in developing the appearance of the physical housings for deployed digital signage and kiosks, again, often by teaming with the developers of the content delivery infrastructure. The impact of digital information systems on EGD is profound and evolving, as is the world of digital communications itself. Some resources on current developments and trends include the websites and events of the SEGD, the International Sign Association, the Digital Screen Media Association, and the Digital Signage Federation. There is no final, definitive word on digital information systems and EGD, as the area of digital communications is in its infancy. As stated earlier in this chapter, digital signage, interactive kiosks, and mobile devices can complement and augment physical, static signage, particularly in a coordinated multi-channel communications program such as a branding campaign. Digital information systems will likely never completely replace physical signs. However, for various reasons, expense, relatively rapid technological obsolescence, power consumption, resource depletion, plus the fact that lots of people just like the reassurance and permanence, let alone the placemaking qualities, of physical signs and interpretive graphics. The challenge for the EGD community, including sign fabricators, is how to harness the rich potential of digital information systems for communicating relevant information about the built environment. Together with more conventional media such as static signage in a coordinated, meaningful way, the possibilities are endless and the creative imagination is the only limit. You can't learn this in college. EGD projects are typically complex with many problems and subproblems, which cross the boundaries of various design disciplines. Accordingly, EGD is a cross-disciplinary specialty field that combines aspects of the graphic design, architecture, and industrial and interior design professions. See Figure 1.25. Currently, there are no comprehensive undergraduate EGD degree granting programs in the United States, of which the authors are aware, although certain undergraduate design programs, typically in graphic design, do offer students exposure to EGD in a specific course. These courses either may be exclusively dedicated to EGD or incorporate EGD within a broader course of study, such as a brand identity design course. On the graduate level, Iowa State University offers an MA in Environmental Graphic Design, the first EGD graduate program in the United States. Due to the lack of comprehensive EGD educational programs, and because of the cross-disciplinary nature of the field, the only way EGD practitioners can fill gaps in their knowledge base is by learning in the workplace. For example, a graphic designer must learn about three-dimensional forms and materials, working in scale, interpreting architectural drawings, and basic drafting. An architect or industrial designer must learn about graphic communication purposes and techniques, two-dimensional design principles, and graphic application techniques. This book aims to fill in those gaps for both aspiring and current practitioners, including students. This book is also for clients who procure EGD services, including brand managers, communication directors, architects, landscape architects, urban designers, planners, public administrators, transportation officials, real estate developers, general contractors, and facility and construction managers. This book will help those who engage the services of environmental graphic designers gain an understanding of EGD processes and methodologies, leading to more effective working relationships with EG designers. What's ahead in this book? This book will take you, the reader, into the wonderful world of EG design, with the focus on static, non-electronic signage and wayfinding design. Although many of its broad principles apply to the digital realm, think of it as a guidebook which leads you first into the design process as it relates to EG design, then reveals what we call the signage pyramid methodology, which Chris Calori developed in graduate school. This methodology divides signage into three interrelated focus areas or components: the information content system, the graphic system, and the hardware system. This divide and conquer strategy makes it easier to solve the complex problems and subproblems posed in the design of a comprehensive signage program. Along the way, you'll also find lots of tips and relatively small dose of opinion. Ultimately, this book is about the design process and methodology that leads to the end product of a built, functioning signage program. The gallery section at the end of this book showcases the built signage programs that are products of the process, while the photos and diagrams throughout the book reflect aspects of the process itself. The photos in the book represent the work of our office as well as that of several leading EGD consulting firms, primarily firms located in the United States, but also some located throughout the world. As you read, keep in mind that every signage and wayfinding project is different. Different sites, different sizes, different clients, different everything. So the generalized, idealized process and methodology presented in this book won't directly mirror the process for each and every signage project an EG designer or client has encountered or will encounter. But though signage and wayfinding design is complex, it's not rocket science. There are a few hard and fast rules, and there are many ways to approach many of the items discussed in this book. There's also a multitude of signage and wayfinding issues and technicalities that this book doesn't address. In sum, we recommend you use this as a big picture book and adapt what you learn to your own projects.